Hey guys, how's it going? This is the Bald Metal Nerd coming at you with another video, and from the title, I already know this video is going to be probably cause a pretty good firestorm of controversy, and that's not really the point of making this video. I just know it's a likely consequence considering how sensitive about this topic people are. So, of course, if you've read the title, you know I'm asking the question, is it moral to raise kids religiously, right? And I'm going to explain a bit, a number of different things, you know, basically what precipitated me making this video, my background on it a little bit personally, and my, of course, opinion on it, because it's a lot of this is going to be subjective. So, what precipitated this whole thing for me was two events with my recent kids. two events with my recent kids. Yeah, I just had no. Sorry, two recent events with my kids. Okay, my 7-year-old just recently did an event at her school called Trick or Trunk, right? Basically, what that is at the school they have, like on a Friday night or whatever, there's a bunch of people who go their cars, handing out candy from, car trunks, getting kids in the spirit for Halloween or whatever, I guess. And, a lot of just, individuals do it, as well as like the police and fire department and all that. And one of the things that my 7-year-old got with, I guess, some of the candy or whatever, there was this big piece of paper that, asking her to join the Good News Club, which is a school club for kids from kindergarten to 5th grade to help them develop a more personal relationship with Jesus Christ. Okay. Now, shocker of shockers, I really don't have a problem with that group existing because it's, not ran by the school directly. I'm okay with it existing. I'm also, that's the word I'm looking for. I'm not upset that she got this thing, right? Because if she wants to ask questions about that sort of thing, I'm certainly open to discussing it with her. But she doesn't really have any interest in it. So I just, showed it to her, and she's like, whatever. And then I threw the piece of paper away. The end. Because she didn't express any further interest in it. And so that's one thing that kind of prompted this. And the other thing that prompted this is my older child, who's 15, recently I had a discussion about God with her today. She wanted to start talking about it, so we did. Now, here's a note on my children. They're actually adopted. I've had them in my house now for about little more than 3 years, so I haven't had these children since birth. So keep that in mind. And when my older child was with her birth parents, they often, took her to church, right? And basically they said, this is true, this is factual, yada, yada, yada. They took her to church and they basically told her, they taught her that the whole, Christian religion was true. But what was amazing to me is, despite, her hearing this for 12 years, her incredible level of ignorance about Christianity. She didn't know who Mary was, didn't know what the Ten Commandments were, doesn't know what the word sinful means. I could go on and on and on. So, her tightly held belief wasn't so, it was pretty shallow, right? And as I've said on this channel many times, I am a non-believer for, just, well, because of lack of evidence for me. That's why I choose, or not choose, that's why I don't believe. So obviously in this house, I don't go to church, and neither does my wife. And she's like, I don't know, for some reason she brought up the fact that she's an atheist now. And then I started talking to her about it. I said, well, why is that? And then she said, well, I don't know. I might believe in God. I probably think there's a God. I said, okay, why is that? And then she didn't really give me any reasons. She just basically said, well, I went to church and this is what I was told. And then when I had her examine it a bit, then she just flipped back to, I don't believe again. So she doesn't really have, I don't think, a very strong conviction one way or the other. She kind of just goes whichever the way the wind blows, right? And I whatever. I guess she's still figuring out what her belief system's going to be or whatever. So that's kind of currently what prompted me to make this video. As far as my own personal background with this, basically in my household, growing up, it was fairly non-religious. But my grandparents were pretty religious. They went to church every Sunday, Catholic mass, and I attended with them somewhat regularly. It didn't, and when I was and growing up, my parents told me that God, and to be fair, my parents did tell me that God was real and all that when I was growing up. God loves you, this, that, and the other. I was told all these things while I was growing up. But it wasn't a strong religious thing. My parents would only go to church extremely rarely, occasionally on holidays. But the older I got, the less they went to church, right? It certainly dropped off as I got older for whatever reason. And then eventually they only went to like weddings and funerals. And that's pretty much my standing policy at this point is I'll only go to weddings and funerals at this point. I don't really go to church for any other reason now because I don't feel a need to. But obviously, I will respect other people's wishes, for those types of ceremonies. I'm not a sanctimonious jerk, or at least I try not to be. So there's that. That's my background. So now my question. Now we're going to get into the meat of this video and how I feel about trying to raise kids as religious. There are some people who have a pretty extreme view of it, both sides of the aisle, right? You have some atheist thinkers who say that raising a child religious is child abuse because you're indoctrinating them from a young age, and small children tend to believe whatever you tell them, right? I can kind of see that a bit, but it really depends, sadly, on what you're teaching them, right, about religion at a young age. I think telling children that God exists and God loves you is relatively harmless, even though I don't, personally believe that. I think, I don't know how harmful that is to a kid. I mean, I was told that growing up. I explored it and ultimately, just didn't feel it. But, I don't know how much harm that does. But now, if you, let's say let's say you are a more fundamentalist religious type person, and you teach your child as they're growing up that being gay is evil because it says it in the Bible. If you teach your children, if let's say you're a Muslim fundamentalist, that the West are infidels, right? And we should be destroyed because we don't agree with them, right? Or if you don't give your children medical care because you think God will heal them, are those things child abuse? See, it's a sliding scale, right? And it really depends on exactly what you're teaching them as they're growing up. It's definitely something to think about. So I can kind of see that side, and then of course there are parents who are really deep in it, and a lot of Christians have the belief that absolutely you would teach your children this, because not to condemns that child to an eternity in hell afterwards, because the only way to get to heaven is through the grace of Jesus Christ, because we're all sinners and fall short of the glory of God, right? So is it right, again I put this in air quotes, to teach your children that they're sinful and they require Jesus Christ to be redeemed? I don't know. It's a tough one, because I think a big part of the reason this stuff survives, that these beliefs still persist in the 21st century with all of the contrary evidence against this sort of thing, I think a large part of it is because people get hooked young. They're often brought up this way. Because if you hear all of this stuff for the first time when you're an adult, right? Let's say you're 30 years old, okay? And you never heard any of this rhetoric growing up, right? Are you going to believe it if you hear it for the first time when you're 30? Probably not. Just like if somebody told you about Santa Claus or the Tooth Fairy or whatever when you're 30 years old, you're probably not going to believe it. I mean, kids grow out of believing in Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy, but they don't grow out of believing in God. Large part of that, I think, has to do with the way our society is set up. So again, what's my view on it? Well, my view as a parent, the way to morally raise your child is to do your best to teach your children the skills and values they need to succeed in society, right? And once upon a time, being religious was fairly critical to success in society. Mostly because it was, the glue that held the entire community together. And if you weren't part of that, you were largely ostracized, and you didn't have many opportunities for, social bonds, right? Whereas now it's definitely has lost the dominant. There are so many alternatives to that now that you don't have to belong in that group to be able to live a fulfilling life. And it's just not I wouldn't say it's required anymore for success. I think also, it's important to teach children not what to think. I don't ever try to teach my children what to think. I try to teach them how to think, how to look at things, how to analyze things, ask themselves what makes sense, what's logical, how should I proceed, and just let them make up their own minds. I don't want to make up their minds for them. So, it's certainly, tons of room for interpretation. So bottom line, is it good or bad? Sadly, the answer is it depends, right? I know it's kind of wishy-washy. It really just depends on what you teach your child. If you teach them, I guess, relatively benign things, I don't know if it really does much or any harm. But if you teach them more malicious things, I don't think it's right. I just don't think it's right to teach children certain things. Period. That's just my opinion. Now, I'm not going to say that anyone is bad for doing it, because I know when people are doing it, they have good intentions and they think they're doing the right thing. But maybe stop and think about it a little bit. Anyway, I know, like I said, this is going to create a firestorm of controversy. I'm probably going to be told I'm going to go to hell and I'm sending my kids to hell. Whatever. Try to refrain from that if you can. Anyway, that's pretty much it. As always, if you like this, thumbs up. If you hated it, thumbs down. Share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you guys next time.